We moved to St. Louis the summer before Joan was a sophomore in high school. And so she started her high school career at Parkway West. It was a brand new school. And she had so many interests, and she got to Parkway West and jumped into everything, got involved in everything. And Parkway West turned out to be a great launching pad for her to live the life that she was meant to live. She found several mentors, teachers that encouraged her and supported her and let her be involved in everything. Several names come to mind, but one of those was Ruthie Jones. And she was a very important person to our family, certainly to Joan. And she recognized in Joan her extraordinary leadership skills, as well as her fun-loving nature, and allowed her to just use her creative abilities however she wanted. So anytime there was an activity or an event at school, Joan was there managing all of it, decorating. Her leadership style was very participatory, and she was able to gather people around her to do all of the things that she thought was important for school spirit, for cohesiveness. And Ruthie was so awesome to let her do that and encourage her. A couple of years ago, Ruthie sent a very, very kind note about Joan, and I just am going to read a little piece of it, if that's all right. Joan was symbolic of everything that is good in a person. Her sense of humor and leading by example are qualities a teacher relishes, and how fortunate I was to have had her in my class and on my first cheerleading squad at West. She was special, and she was special to all of us.
We mentioned about Joan having so many gifts and talents and was involved in so many things, and another couple of mentors come to mind that had a major influence in Joan's life, and those were Jerry Galloway and Kay Wonder. Joan was in the concert choir, as well as many of the other small singing groups. And of course, back then, she was called Mickey. I don't know if people remember that now, but Mickey and Kay were a major influence in Joan's lives. They recognized her musical abilities as well as her artistic abilities. And that carried on throughout her life in just about everything she did. She used her music and her art in whatever she pursued, whether that was in her volunteer work, in her business ventures, anything, she used that. In the year Joan graduated in 1970, she was voted by her peers as best all around. And that's what Joan was. She was best at anything she did. One of the peers that was important to Joan, who stood next to her actually in concert choir, was Bill York. And I have the opportunity to live in Springfield, Missouri in the same city with Bill. And we're in a dinner club together, actually. And so Bill is a wonderful reminder of just the days that he got to spend with Joan. And every once in a while, he'll talk about some of the neat things they did in concert choir and his part of getting to stand next to her and how meaningful that was to him. Joan approached life with a lot of enthusiasm. She always challenged us to do better and find the highest good in whatever it was. She was the oldest, and so when she got to Parkway West, she kind of was our role model, all of us kids, and she kind of brought the Parkway culture home to us, and we just jumped into it just as much as she did. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and we wanted to be part of it, and so that's what we did. And whenever there was an opportunity, whether to help her paint signs or whether it was hanging crepe paper off the goalposts, which I did on a regular basis, that was important to show that spirit, that school spirit that she had. And she was the whole time, creating that spirit in her. As I look back on Joan's life, she encouraged people to develop who they were, to be better at whatever they did. She pushed all of us to set goals and to be the best and to be involved. And I feel like a lot of that was initiated from our years at West and in Parkway schools. The teachers and the mentors there were such an important part of our lives, and I'm happy to say continue to be 40 years later.
I think the part that I want to speak to about Joan is certainly she was all about spirit. She was all about spirit, and probably this represents that at Parkway West. This can came from our grandfather's farm, and it was an old milk jug that was there, and she found this milk jug and decided that she had to have it as a spirit can. So we hauled it home, and she painted that. She painted the Parkway West design on it, and they used it at all the football games. And she was a cheerleader, and so at the football games they would have the can out there and take the lid off, and everyone would yell, and then they put the lid on, and it's go quiet. And so anyway, that was her. This was her creation to do that. The other part I want to speak to is. In Joan's later years, she spent so much time in leadership positions, whether it was work, church, volunteering in organizations, but in her later years, she pursued a master's degree in religion. And it was just about the time that, as she started pursuing that degree, she was diagnosed with cancer. And education was so incredibly important to her, and the experience of conveying what she was learning, that even as she was in the process of disease and passing, and I think it was for a period of about 7 years, all during that time she was studying and learning, and mostly around how it related to her spirit and the healing of her spirit. And so when Joan towards the very end, right before she passed, she had written a thesis, and it was on healing of the spirit as it relates to disease and illness. And when she passed, she told us when she was going to go, and she was so very peaceful. And basically, she said, "I'm going tomorrow at 2 o'clock," and it was just about that time that she went very peacefully. So she lived her life fully, every second, whether it was at Parkway West, whether it was volunteering, whether it was leadership. And even as she was passing, there were people coming into the hospital to see her, wanted to see her again one more time. And she was all about what might be nurturing and helpful for them, even as she was passing. So there was kind of a steady stream of visitors, and she was very peaceful when she passed. Great person.